The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, Wednesday edition, Hail Varsity Radio on the road here at Pinnacle Bank Arena for girls state basketball 2023. Taking you till 6. Courtside, Bellevue West leading Bellevue East at halftime. We'll get you score updates at the end of each quarter. 25-16, Bellevue West over their rival Bellevue East. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, as we're excited to have you in with Hail Varsity Radio. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 489-1240 to dial us up here on Hail Varsity. Can also, across the state, find us at 1-800-825-5865. We're streaming as well. Not streaming basketball action, just streaming the show. Hail Varsity YouTube channels where you can find us. Also, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. Facebook for KFOR, Twitter for KFOR. Down the row, our friend Jacob Padilla with Hail Varsity, and of course Mike Sauter with Hurrdat Sports, giving you all the excellent high school prep coverage. Well, less than 12 hours ago, Elijah, man, what a first half it was for Nebraska basketball. They were up by 12, up by as many as 15. Sparty was shooting a whopping 27%. Nebraska right around 60%. And then it all went sideways. All went haywire as what a close, what a finish, what a response by Michigan State, 80-67. We'll get to that reaction and thoughts with last night. Of course, it is NFL Combine time. O'Shawn Mathis gets to get his track shoes out tomorrow. Travis Vokalek and Trey Palmer on the show here in about 15 minutes. Already in the green room is Mike Babcock. So we'll hear from Babbers here in about 15 minutes, assuming he still wants to hang around and chat with us. Evan Bland in hour 2. Coming up from the Omaha World Herald, the latest on Will Bolt. Big baseball weekend for Nebraska in Minneapolis. They'll take on Vandy at 11 o'clock on Friday, Hawaii Saturday, and then they'll get to arm wrestle with Elijah's Ole Miss Rebels on Sunday. Can I say Elijah's Ole Miss Rebels?
I follow them. I do. I have been following them this year, so maybe. I mean,
you have a sweatshirt. I mean, that's more than I have.
When compared to the rest of the state of Nebraska, yes, you can call them Elijah's Ole Miss Rebels. Compared to, Ole Miss fans, I am so, on bottom tier, barely following them. I know they've run-ruled a couple teams this year. I know they have a really good offense. Their pitching staff really hasn't been tested, and I think with that base of knowledge, I already know more about the Ole Miss baseball team than 99.8% of the state of Nebraska. So, sure, Elijah Herbel's Ole Miss Rebels.
So we are at Rosie's tomorrow, again, 4 to 6. Elijah's packing his backpack for Vegas. We wish you well, good sir. I don't want a hangover part 4 emerging.
No.
Don't behave too much.
I'm going to make money.
Well enough.
This is a business venture for me.
I like that. Can email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com. So let's talk Nebraska, Michigan State briefly. And it was just insane, that second half three-point barrage by Michigan State. 12 of 17. And I thought things were going to be, I'm stupid here, okay for Nebraska. When Sparty cut it down to 3, it was 45-42. And then immediately you get a 7-0 spurt by Nebraska, capped off by the Tominaga no-look 3. And Nebraska pushed their lead back up to 10. And then it never got better for Nebraska. And for the first time in a long time, and this happens to teams, the offensive woes affected the defensive intensity. Listen, we watched a lot of the first half at Rosie's. driving back, was listening to Kent Pavelka, Jake Mielheisen on our affiliate 590. Incredible work by those guys. The moment, the sound, the atmosphere, the joy was as loud as I've heard Pinnacle Bank Arena in X number of years, since No Sit Sunday, since Terran Petaway's pull-up three in transition to, yep, he's on against that No Sit Sunday Wisconsin team with Frank the Tank, the Final Four team. That's what it sounded like. You couldn't hear the announcers, and it was just bedlam. It was incredible to listen to. It was a lot of fun to watch if you're a Nebraska basketball fan. And then the bottom dropped out, and you see it. It is a tale of two halves, and Nebraska could just never get going. I think they pressed Walker. Usually the offense goes through him. He only had 9 shot attempts, 6 to 9. Jamarcus Lawrence, man, I'm big picture here for Nebraska. That kid's a ball player. He isn't afraid of anything. He took some monster shots and made some monster shots, and he paced Nebraska, 7 for 10 from the floor. Tominaga was 7 for 11. Wiltshire 1 for 5. Griesel, bless his heart, I think just got a little bit pressed and a little bit sped up in that second half, just wanting it too much. From a bench standpoint, Nebraska had one bench point, and that came really late in the ball game. It was 5 total with Sammy Hoiberg from the free throw line, but it was just a tough night for Nebraska. Hauser goes off for 6 threes, and Akins goes for 5. Walker hits 3 of 4, and then Sparty also got 2 for 4 from Hall. And it was just raining threes. No answer for Nebraska last night against Michigan State. So credit to Izzo, credit to Michigan State. They had to have last night. They did not need to continue the losing streak, and you wondered how they'd respond after Iowa. Well, I thought they'd respond how Michigan State typically responds, and they were tested. They were all but buried in the first half, and they came out swinging, and that's a glimpse of what Michigan State can be. Quick update here at PBA, 6:37, timeout called. Bellevue West on top, 31-19. But Nebraska's job now is to respond. They have had great resilience with this group of seniors. They go to Iowa City. All Iowa did was hang 90 on the road in Bloomington last night as they dismantled a red-hot Indiana team. That's going to be no fun. So Nebraska's task is still the same. Finish the year 2-1. Looks like they're going to be playing Minnesota for a third time in Chicago next week. So their job is to shake it off. Go try and steal one in Iowa City. Don't know that that's going to happen. And then go try and get 2 in Chicago. They beat Minnesota. They'll likely get Indiana if things don't get too crazy over the weekend.
Well, Schmidt, I want to take it back to last night briefly because I said on the show, whoever wins that game between Michigan State and Nebraska will be the team that is making more plays down the stretch. And I think whenever you close a game on a, 32-7 run from Michigan State? Was that the final number? I can't quite remember.
38-12.
38-12. There's the number. Whenever you close the game on a 38-12 run, I think it's safe to say that Michigan State made more plays down the stretch of that game. They really settled in, and they shot over 70% from 3 in the second half. They got a lot of open looks from 3. So I think that's a combination of them getting hot at the right time in Nebraska's defense, not adjusting to Michigan State in the second half. And then you also had a case of what I saw to be some seniors that were pressing last night, some guys that felt that adversity and said, it's senior night, I'm going to step up, I'm going to make a play. And that hasn't been how this Husker basketball team has won games over the past month and a half. It hasn't been guys putting the weight of the team on their back and saying, I'm going to step up, I'm going to make a play. It's been team basketball on the offensive end. That has allowed Nebraska to score more points as of late. You didn't see that last night. Michigan State was able to make more plays down the stretch. That's going to happen against teams that are better than you. I think Nebraska, from a physicality standpoint and from an effort standpoint matched up with Michigan State last night. They just had more shooters on the floor. They had a little bit more talent, and you saw that in the final 10 minutes of that basketball game. It's credit to Michigan State. I don't think it takes anything away from what Nebraska's done over the past month and a half. You just know the task now is to go put up a good effort against Iowa at Carver Hawkeye, which is always a tough place to go win. And you got to say, you know what? We're in the play-in games, the Big Ten tournament. I don't think how we've been playing over the past month should put us there, but that's what the adversity that lies ahead of us is. Is this Husker basketball team going to embrace that adversity? Everything I've seen has told me yes, they will, but that remains to be seen. We'll see how Nebraska goes and performs in Chicago. It's been a tough place for Nebraska since joining the Big Ten tournament has, I should say, and we'll see if this team has a different kind of mettle to them, because that's what it takes in the Big Ten tournament. You're going and playing games on back-to-backs, very little preparation. What kind of mettle, M-E-T-T-L-E, does this Husker basketball team have? We'll find out in Chicago, but what I've seen over the past month would show me that they're not going to back down to any challenges that stand in their way. Yesterday was a slight hiccup in the road, but I think that was expected to happen. We kind of called it on the show yesterday. Not me, I picked Nebraska, but we knew that the magic was going to come to an end. How are they going to respond to this now that things have stopped going your way in the month of February?
Nebraska with 10 field goals made in the second half, 9 turnovers, 9 of the 14 turnovers. Also 12 for Nebraska, and bench scoring non-existent. What Michigan State did, aside from try and hide from Tom Izzo at halftime, because I guarantee you things were probably flying and paint was peeling based on his post-game interview with BTN. Well, he actually guarded some, he gets insanely intense, and you know that going in, and you love playing for him, and he knows how to push buttons and challenge. But he went after Tominaga. I mean, they found a matchup in the rotation, and Michigan State came out and hit 4 of their first 5 threes, and those were closeouts on Tominaga. I know he scored 20. I know he's been a catalyst for these guys, but there's still the reality of his part of the game, and that is the defensive liability. He's been better much of the season, but Sparty really targeted him yesterday in the second half, and that got them going.
It's just the reality that this team, despite all the heart, is still limited. With a guy like Casey, it's on the defensive end of the floor. He's limited there. With a guy like CJ Wilcher this season, it's been shooting for some reason. I don't think anyone saw that coming. He's been able to step up on the defensive side for the most part, but he's been limited with shooting. With Wilhelm Breidenbach, it's physicality going down low against some of the Big Ten's really physical big men. Nebraska's limited there. Just Nebraska is limited in a lot of places on the floor, and heart can only make up for so much of that. You saw that down the stretch of that game last night. Tom Izzo, to your point, made a lot of great adjustments in the second half. Nebraska, whenever they faced adversity, didn't quite adjust, and it felt like they were feeling that moment. Whenever Michigan State started making that run, you were sitting there watching that game going, all right, who's going to step up? Who's going to make a play? Who's going to stem the tide? Because it's been one guy, Kisei hitting a shot, Sam Hoiberg making a play defensively, Derek Walker putting his head down, getting a tough bucket, and getting to the line as well. You were waiting, hoping somebody would make a play. It never quite happened. That's going to happen in the game of basketball. It's all about how you respond now in the next couple of weeks, as you're into a very important stretch of your season if you want to go make noise in an NIT tournament. You're into the important stretch. You can't let one loss phase you.
We're here at Pinnacle Bank Arena, Girls State Basketball 2023 opening round action. The battle for Bellevue right now, as Bellevue East has gotten a little bit of momentum. They're still down 12. Nice and one for Bell West, 37-25. Tonight, Millard North at 6 o'clock will take on Lincoln North Star, making their first trip to state ever. So congrats to the Gators. Southwest, a gallant effort earlier against Millard South. Millard South winning by double digits. We'll dive into some of the prospects now and into the future for Nebraska football with the NFL Combine. Mike Babcock's standing by as well to give us his thoughts on Husker Baseball with an important weekend series RPI-wise, and a little recon by one Elijah Herbel with our friends at Hail Varsity, and we can kind of decipher the jerseys you're going to see with Nebraska this spring practice. What does it mean? We all know what the black shirt means, but what about some of the other shades are being rocked right now? Nebraska will, no doubt, just to wrap up our basketball talk and basketball take, we'll get Babber's thoughts as well. Now, this team has provided a bunch of joy in February. It's not over. It just feels like you woke up from a great dream based on how things have gone with Nebraska basketball the previous 3 seasons. It feels like a great dream where Nebraska was, well, they were doing, quite frankly, what none of us expected them to do, and that's stabilize, put a run together, and do it with their backs totally against the wall due to injury. And that's what's been memorable about this team, whatever shakes out postseason or not.
It's been the fact that it's a team that is very easy to root for, and they have found success in there. There's not a guy that I think you go on the floor that is like unenjoyable to root for. Casey's got the factor of being a great shooter. He brings a lot of energy. You've got in Derek Walker that seems to put his heart and soul into the program. Sam Hoiberg, Sam Griesel, the hometown kid. Sam Hoiberg, the coach's son. Everyone roots for the coach's son. Wilhelm Breidenbach just doesn't look like he should be a basketball player.
Depending on the travel team.
But Breidenbach just doesn't look like a basketball player. If you were to see him on the street, but then he gets on the floor and he's easy to root for that reason. Everyone on that floor is easy to root for whenever they go on a run. It just makes them that much more lovable. Hurts to see them lose, but I think this whole state is proud of what Husker basketball has put together in the last month.
Yep, tough one here at PBA last night. We wind down this first segment. Mike Babcock's on the way. It's Hail Varsity presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out here at Pinnacle Bank Arena. A roadshow Wednesday here. Girls State Basketball 2023. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. And can find Mike Babcock at MD Babs on Twitter as he joins us from HailVarsity.com and magazine. Get the subscription today, HailVarsity.com/offer for the magazine. For the digital. Babber's in his football den. Mike, how we doing today? Thanks for the time.
Hey, I'm doing okay, guys. Want to say one more thing about what you were talking about, Michigan State, that second half. And I know 12 of 17 is remarkable. It's also a reflection in some way of the value of passing the ball, moving the ball, because when those guys, for the most part, shot those 3-point shots, they were wide open. There was nobody covering them because they passed the ball around. And, that's the thing that really I found remarkable is the adjustment that they made and the ability to get guys open to take those 3-point shots. And every time that guy had that open shot, I thought, holy mackerel, here it goes.
Well, and how many times Michigan State was able to make an extra pass? A guy gave up a good look for a great look. That's what surprised me. That was, I think, the difference between first half and the second half for Michigan State. It's the first half they were getting good looks, and the second half they were getting great looks.
Yeah, open shots at the 3. And that was a function of passing the ball, like you said, passing up a good shot to get a great shot.
Mike Babcock with us, and Sparty was spaced out. They moved the basketball. Their point guard was incredible. Finished with 10 points and 12 assists. Sparty was physical and tough on the glass, and Nebraska looked like they ran out of gas a little bit as well. I know they're a little bit thin on the bench, but what a run they've been on, Mike. Let's focus there for a moment. And I know you got one left in the regular season at Iowa City. There's the Chicago showdown for Nebraska in the Big Ten tournament. They put themselves in position to find postseason. We'll see if they can do it. Gorgeous home run pass here for Bellevue East to break in. Touchdown Montana to Rice and an and one.
Well, Schmidty, it sounds like they're cheering for you. It sounds like you just made a great point and the whole crowd erupted.
Of course.
Yeah, I think they're applauding Schmidty is what the deal is. It looks like for me.
They might be. They're chanting Babbers. That's what they're doing right now. But no, I mean,
something significant. That's what they're saying.
Well, I can go talk to him here and see if we can't get a Babbers chant here from both student sections. I love it. But
I think Babbers have to throw the bones after that one.
Yeah. Where were you? Where's Babbers going to sign on March 30th? Mike Babcock with us.
The basketball team has also done well considering the injury situation. I mean, you've lost two of your best defenders for the season. And then last night you had Lawrence went out briefly with an injury. Did Tominaga, did he finish the game? Did he come back? I don't think he was on the court.
But his ankle was a bit gimpy. So I don't know what his deal was. I just know that he had picked on the first 5 minutes, and that opened the floodgates. We had a comment from Brian. And a guy that's not seen as many minutes in the rotations, Denham Dawson. Denham's one of the better defenders, and Denham, with given the opportunity, came in early in this season post injuries and sparked a little bit. And then Tominaga, with his time coming off the bench, kind of really took off. So I don't know where Denham is in the lineup, but that's a good point by Brian on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. But no, I think it's going to be awful tough. I think Iowa's woke up with what they did to Indiana, how they came back against Michigan State. Iowa's riding the right wave right now, and it'll be really tough for Nebraska to go get that done this weekend. But still plenty of basketball left potentially for Nebraska if they can make a move or two in Chicago. Mike?
Yeah, well, Iowa's 14-2 at home, so that magnifies the situation. That's going to be a difficult task for the Huskers, but I still think that what we've seen in February from this team, I think you can feel like if you get an opportunity to play in the NIT, for example, I think it's a team that can be successful to some degree. I don't know how far you're going to go, but if they can keep everybody else healthy and able to play, I've just been impressed. Now, the second half of the Michigan State game, it was not so impressive, but the first half was, off the charts impressive, I thought, the way they played. And if you can get somewhere in between or replicate that first half, Nebraska is a force to be reckoned with, even in the Big Ten tournament, I think, because of it's a strong conference. I mean, I don't presume that Nebraska is going to win the conference tournament, but it's going to be a tough out. Whoever has to play them is going to have to be at their best, the way Michigan State was in the second half last night.
Mike Babcock's with us here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. And Mike, let's quickly switch gears here, talk some Husker baseball, something we haven't spent a whole bunch of time on this week, as we've had plenty to talk about with Husker basketball and high school hoops here in the capital city. But when you look at Husker baseball, a successful weekend, and I don't think there's any way you can contest that against South Alabama. You get the sweep, you put up a lot of runs, your pitching looks good, but now you face a tall test this weekend with Vanderbilt and Ole Miss up in Minneapolis. And before we get there, just give me your thoughts on the weekend that was for Husker baseball. It kind of feels like that was the weekend they should have had the opening weekend, able to build a little bit of confidence against a lesser foe, if I dare say it that way, in South Alabama.
Yeah, but a mindset, you come off of a series in which you're 0-3-1 and you're playing a team that's had success, it's a mindset that they're winning. So I think that part of it makes it more difficult for Nebraska. I thought Nebraska responded very well. I thought, relief pitching was something that was a factor, was a problem the first weekend. I thought there was some step up there. Garza, did a nice job coming in, and we met today with a couple players. In addition, Garza was one of them. I think he's going to fit into the rotation in some way as a reliever, probably. And Will Bolt said he even could be down the line at some point. He could be a starter, but I think that the pitching was better. You didn't walk everybody like you did the first week. First week, you had 20 walks and 10 hit by pitches. No, you're not going to be successful that way. You broke that down a little bit, although there were still guys that were getting hit by pitch on both sides of the ball. Nebraska had a bunch of guys get hit by pitches. And you're getting the hitting. Now, Vanderbilt, you're going to face a team that has some really solid pitching. Vanderbilt doesn't have his team average about 253, I think, if I remember that correctly. But the pitching, you've got two starters with an ERA under 2. You've got a third starter with an ERA of 2.08. Pitching is going to be the thing that you're going to have to. We're going to see whether the Nebraska hitters who have had success, Max Anderson's hitting over 400. Josh Karam has really stepped up, hitting over 300. He's got 3 home runs, 8 runs batted in. Garrett Anglin, 345, I think he's batting. And Bryce Matthews is hitting over 300. Had a really nice last 2 games in the South Alabama thing in the series, so that I think that's going to be the test there is how are you going to stand up against this kind of pitching. But, they seem to have confidence, and, you're going to take it one game at a time. You got Vanderbilt, then it's Hawaii, then it's Ole Miss. Like you said, it's not an easy thing, but they're going to go with the same starting rotation that they have the first 2 weekends.
Mike Babcock with us, few minutes, Hail Varsity Radio live at PBA for girls state basketball, 5:40 left in this fourth quarter. Bell West 51, Bell East 42, so it's tightened up a little bit. Mike going to go to the NFL Combine. Palmer, Mathis, Vokalek are the invitees, and bigger question is this, is NFL talent. Do you expect that to be on an uptick under Matt Rule because of the type of guy he's going after? And he's going after one defining trait and characteristic, and that is speed. And the NFL loves guys that are fast.
Yeah, speed. I think that was the significant thing, that he talked about in recruiting, and it doesn't necessarily – he's looking at track guys. He's looking at speed. He needs to upgrade that. I think that the potential for Nebraska's NFL type players coming in here, part of it is that he coached in the NFL. He has an idea of what kind of players fit that. But if it fits the system that he wants to put together here is going to be the question. He wants a physical kind of a offensive line, defensive line, physicality up front is important, and then that speed factor. So yeah, I think there's the potential for that, and that's going to be a focus, I think. But the bottom line is you're coming here to play football for Nebraska. It's a college football thing. You have to have a team mentality, and that if you're just coming here to like, okay, my total focus is to play in the NFL, it's going to be difficult to develop that kind of team chemistry that you need to have. And I think that's really important. I think that Rule has pointed that out. And I'll emphasize that. I'm rambling here, but I'll emphasize that. I remember it was, maybe I've said this before, but a junior college transfer who played in the offensive line a couple of years ago. It might have been Carl Nix. I'm not really sure. I forget the name. But I was talking to him about transferring to Nebraska, and he said, it was great transferring to Nebraska from a junior college, because in junior college, everybody's playing for themselves. They're all trying to get to the next level, to the 4-year school. And he said, at Nebraska, I feel like I'm part of a team. And I think that's the thing that you have to emphasize, so that if it's like, my goal is to get to the NFL, that's all you're concerned about. It's going to be difficult. That team chemistry thing is going to be difficult to build. So yeah, I think it's going to be a combination.
No, absolutely right on with that. And you got to be selfish, but only to a point. And the JUCO mentality, yeah, good take on that. Mike Babcock with us. Mike, we'll get caught up again next week, partner. Thanks for jumping on and spending a few minutes with us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate you. There he is, historian, author, Hall of Famer, Mike Babcock. Hail Varsity continues.
And now,
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow Wednesday, as we are day one of Girls State Basketball 2023. Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. I'm posted up here courtside at PBA as Bellevue East and Bellevue West. About 2 minutes left in this one. A lead that's grown a bit by Bell West as they are over Bellevue East 61-44 here in real time. Numbers to get in, 489-1240. We'll dive in hour two to some of the draft hopefuls for the 2023 NFL draft for Nebraska and some of those on the roster right now. Elijah, let's talk. Another video released. Our friend Brady Oltmans from Hail Varsity tweeting out or retweeting the Nebraska account of the winter workouts that are ongoing. And a lot of fellas in black practice jerseys trying to strip medicine balls, playing tug-of-war with those giant plates that Elijah Herbel once upon a time in the Southeast weight room put on each bar to crank out bench presses. Going to leave my max out number locked up inside Titan Personal, so I'm not laughed out of the building. And you have a bit of a rundown here with what each color signifies, and black is the best. That is, you're a dude, and this staff has already recognized you as a dude, correct? How many color schemes do they have?
Well, it looks to me like you got black, and then you have like a gray/slate of sorts, and then you have red, you have white, and then you have both purple and green. And in a conversation with Aaron Sorensen this morning, we seem to have figured out what most of the colors mean.
She's on it, man.
Yeah, so the black is, as you mentioned, it's kind of like the gold standard. It's what you're trying to get to. Well, the whole thing with the jerseys is they're trying to promote the correct example within the program. They do that with jerseys. So black means you are going above and beyond. You are a role model for the rest of the team. If you want to do it right, follow one of the guys who's wearing a black jersey. They're going to get it right. And then the black jersey guys, they all work together in this winter conditioning program. Whenever you watch these videos, it's always a black jersey going up against a black jersey in these drills. It's always a white jersey going up against a white jersey, a red jersey going up against a red jersey. So you're hoping to climb the ranks until you reach the echelon of all the guys wearing the black jerseys. So that's what you're going for. And that's like the exemplary, you know what? You're going above and beyond what the coaches are asking. You're setting a great example for the rest of the team. That's black. When you have red is you're meeting expectations. This is what the coaches want from you. You're hitting those exactly. There's no complaints with what you're doing. You're not going above and beyond, though. And if you want to go above and beyond, follow the lead of the guys in the black jerseys. You have that slate color, which is kind of somewhere in between the two. You're not the perfect example, but you're getting there. Then you have white jersey, which means currently you're below our expectation. You're just trying to get to red for now to meet the coach's expectations. And then from there, you can go work up into being a slate guy or a black jersey type guy. So white jerseys is at the bottom, meaning needs improvement as of right now. And then it seems that green and purple both are along the lines of this player is dealing with some sort of injury and they're not a full go for winter conditioning. Unsure exactly what the green and the purple means, but they seem to be being worn by players that aren't full participants in winter conditioning. So that's the rundown. The green and the purple is a little bit confusing. I'm not sure what the difference between the two is. I'll continue working on that, trying to figure it out. But that's your rundown on what the jerseys mean through winter conditioning as you go check out the videos. And it seems from Aaron's conversations with a couple players this past week and this morning that the players seem to really appreciate this new system of knowing exactly where you are in the coach's pecking order through winter conditioning and exactly who you should be following in order to be moving your way up, not even in the coach's perspective, but also on the depth chart through winter conditioning, trying to get yourself a good spot as spring starts.
To reset, black, silver, red, white, that's the order?
Yes, black, silver, red, white, and then green, purple seems to be something to do with injury.
Okay, so if you're wearing a white jersey and they got to get down to 85...
You're in the danger zone.
You are in the danger zone. And it's laid out for you.
That's so why I think the best part is.
I wonder what moving day is like, though. At what point does a red become a white and a white become a red, and all of a sudden they won't do this, but they do in the NFL. Your belongings go in a trash bag, and you're cut. or you're transferring, or, hey, take that medical red shirt. A win for Bellevue West as they move on to the semis in girls Class A opening round action, 63-46 over Bellevue East. Millard North and North Star in about an hour and 15 minutes here at Pinnacle Bank Arena. Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. No, this is no nonsense. This is straight talk. It's visual. It is visual. There's been communication. Here's the expectations. Here's the standard. And it sounds like not only are the coaches able to communicate that with the team, Elijah, but it's the peers in the black jerseys that are also coaching up and performing at that level.
And what seems to be interesting about this is, as you've laid out, it sets a very clear expectation for the team. The team knows exactly what they need to do in order to go get yourself a black jersey. You want to be a guy wearing a black shirt during winter conditioning, you know exactly what you need to do. But it also sounds like it's a sliding scale of sorts, so that if you're a black jersey and you maintain exactly what you're doing over the course of 2 weeks, that might not be good enough to earn yourself a black jersey in 2 weeks. It's a sliding scale based on what the rest of the team is doing. So if some of these red jersey guys start catching the black jersey guys and they're overtaking them, the same effort that it takes to keep a black jersey right now may not be good enough a week from now, may not be good a month from now. And that is kind of going to be part of your evaluation process with these guys. As you know what, I'm not working hard enough right now. What I was doing 2 weeks ago isn't good enough. We're trying to be our best to do that. We got to keep on one-upping each other and going above and beyond.
Brody, we will try and go frame by frame. That'll be part of Elijah's homework and my homework over the weekend while he's in Vegas. I'll be at home, and we will go frame by frame. But if you see the Husker football Twitter account tweeting out these winter conditioning exercises, and you can recognize a dude, there you go. I don't have a list. We don't have the black jersey list. We don't have the white jersey list. Dan tweets in.
Well, I've picked out a couple guys in the video that stand out to me as being guys in black jerseys. Nash Hutmacher is one of them in a black jersey. You have Luke Reimer in a black jersey. Chubba Purdy is in a black jersey. I am trying to figure out, I believe that's Phelan Sanford in a black jersey, but I'm not 100% certain on that one. If you go through and watch the video, start picking out jersey numbers and seeing who you see in the black jerseys, that is seemingly your scale as it stands right now, though.
Pretty accurate right there. But if you're in a white jersey, Dan says, look, that means we're 15 over. There's an 85 limit. You is on notice. And that's kind of what we're thinking.
Oh, a notable black jersey, or excuse me, a slate jersey is, I believe it's Maverick Noonan early in his Husker career in a slate jersey.
That's cool. He just got here.
Mm-hmm. I see Malcolm Hartzog in a black jersey. I'm just siphoning through the video here, seeing who I see.
Sure.
Hartzog's in a black jersey. Fedoni's in a red. You saw that pretty notably in the video as he won one of his reps, but he is in a red jersey, so that's interesting to note. But he's also coming back from injury. Interesting, he's not in one of the injured jerseys. He's in a seemingly full participant jersey.
There you go. There's the rundown of the jerseys. Where do you stand on the team here going through winter conditioning? We're here at Pinnacle Bank Arena, day one of Girls State 2023. Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Hail Varsity Roadshow here at PBA today. Back at Rosie's downtown tomorrow, 10th and P. We'll step away, wind down hour one. Evan Bland on the way. Hail Varsity continues, presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Winding down this first hour, it's Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow Wednesday here, Girls State 2023. Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, courtside with Hail Varsity Radio. So just a warning, Elijah, I don't know if you're a mixed drink guy or not, but apparently a Illini player, Matthew Mayer, has been sick the last few days with caffeine poisoning. He drank 5 Monster Energy drinks while playing video games on Sunday after the Ohio State game, and it's his first day back at practice. I've tried to get caffeine poisoning with cups of coffee on certain days, but I've never cranked out 5 monsters in one sitting.
No, not even close.
Nor have I tried to get caffeine poisoning, but there's a bar right there.
I think the closest I've gotten is various pre-workouts. And now the pre-workouts have extended into the energy drink market. You have Bang Energy, Ghost Energy is a new popular one.
Junior drinks two bangs before every ball game. And
those things are terrifying. I will say those things are like 300 plus milligrams of caffeine in one of them, dude. I have never been closer to what I thought was a heart attack than after a Bang Energy. And then they also had what was called, I can't remember what the pre-workout was called back in the day, but one of my buddies recommended it to me in high school, and I swear to God, I took this. We went and did it was our max out day in the weight room back in high school. So I did it. I did awesome with my workouts. I felt like I had a crazy extra 10 pounds that I could push out there. But on the downside, I could not sleep for a full day and a half.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Junior's like, hey, old man, are you out of chew? I'm like, maybe. And he's like, well, when you go in there, I need 2 cherry vanilla bangs. That might be part of his problem with throwing strikes.
It could be because two Bang Energies is equivalent to 4 Red Bulls.
Yeah. What really frightens me is when he takes his IV out.
What?
I'm kidding. I'm joking. Junior mainlining Bang.
That's a performance-enhancing drug, I think.
Hey, dude, I need you to pee in a cup for me. Can you help me out? This just sent in from a walk-on that's leading the way, setting the standard, rocking the standard for Nebraska football, these winter conditioning workouts. Grant Buda, walk-on, hell of a player at Lincoln Southwest. He's been performing at a high level, wearing the black jersey this winter conditioning. And as we look at some of the white jerseys we're talking about, or that silver, I should say, silver, you mentioned Mav Noonan. Maybe some of the new faces or freshmen are in that group. We don't have confirmation on that.
I don't have confirmation. That's not what I originally heard, but as I watch back, it seems to be mostly what I've seen. It seems to be freshmen in the slate jersey. So it could be a case of here are your freshmen who are setting the standard. You get yourself a slate jersey. That could be what I'm seeing. I'll have to get some confirmation, do some digging on that, because that's not what I originally heard, but that's what it seems to be whenever I watch back that video they posted today.
Well, good stuff on Grant Buda. Good dude and really good football player, and good for him with what he's doing on the practice field. Hour 2, we'll spend time with Evan Bland from the Omaha World Herald. He'll join us, get some thoughts on some Husker baseball with Evan, get his take on things, also with some Nebraska football and NFL Combine on our mind. Who can wow tomorrow? If you're Nebraska, O'Shawn Mathis, where's his draft grade at right now? Where's Trey Palmer? Where's his grade at right now? And a reminder to get buckled up as hands on the wheel, eyes and mind straight ahead. The driver has one job, that's to drive a message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio Hour 2 here at Pinnacle Bank Arena. The calm before the night session here. Courtside, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Elijah's got his bags packed. He is off to Vegas tomorrow. We will see if Chow bails him out or he bails Leslie Chow out over the weekend.
It should be noted by you saying I have my bags packed, you far, far overestimate my preparedness for this trip.
No, you're bringing a backpack with a phone charger, some deodorant, a toothbrush, and maybe a new T-shirt. Rosie's tomorrow, 4 to 6 is where we're at. You are clearly getting product placement and funding to go to Vegas with some of your friends.
No, it's all I really think I think I need for success is just a couple $100. If I have that with me, I'll be just fine.
You're gonna reenact Joe Pesci in Casino. Hit me. Pretty good. We'll talk NFL Combine and projections for some Nebraska prospects. We'll hit some baseball. Evan with us. Do we have Evan locked in? All right, Evan Bland is with us from the Omaha World Herald at Evan Bland, OWH. On Twitter is where you find him. Evan, how's the day? Thanks for jumping on, man.
Yeah, doing well. Now I want to go to Vegas, though, so you got me all worked up for that. But no, hanging out, doing fine.
Good. I have never in my entire life. Elijah's going to go clean up. Are you blackjack? Are you hold'em? Are you craps? Elijah, what is the game of choice?
I don't understand craps one bit. My plan is to start out with some poker, and as long as I don't get cleaned out too quick, then we make it to blackjack and maybe some roulette as the weekend goes on. And obviously got to make a stop by the sports book. I'm going to the UFC fights this weekend. John Jones and Cyril Gahn are going at it, so I got to lay down just a little bit of action while I'm in Vegas.
Evan, what is your game of choice in Vegas?
I like blackjack. Every now and again I'll do a Major League Baseball parlay. I think those are pretty good. But, I try to avoid the Vegas vacation type of places where you're guessing the number behind someone's back or doing rock, paper, scissors or that kind of thing. I try to keep it a little more mainstream.
See, and I want to hit the poker table because, well, I've been watching a whole bunch of World Series of Poker videos on YouTube.
Do you have your sunglasses ready?
No, I don't. I just consider myself like I've done some preparation there. I've done my homework. I'm all set. But also, instead of playing against the house, you are playing against the other people at the table, which I feel like it gives you better odds. Because if you're playing against the house in Vegas, Vegas will always have the odds stacked against you. In poker, you're playing against the people at the table, so it just comes down to how good they are.
It's a judgment call. Is the person next to Elijah smoking Camel Lights or Lucky Strikes? Elijah, that's you're going to judge the competition at the table. You're going to go James Bond. You're going to sit down and you're going to try and go to work with Texas Hold'em. Evan Bland is with us. Let's talk baseball for a moment. Evan, did you run into the everyday mall Santa out there in Vegas, Pete Rose? Did you get any tips from him on baseball?
No. Should I have? Maybe I missed out on an opportunity there.
I think Pete strolls around Vegas, one of the malls where you can go get hit king graphing a bat or a ball. And while you're at it, I just ask him what he thinks of the spring training rundown if we're going to bet the old baseball parlay. Let's start with Nebraska baseball. And you caught up with Coach Bolt today. And vibe right now, really good weekend for Nebraska. Now they're trying to take that on the road to Minneapolis as they set up with a great opportunity, right? Two heavyweights from the SEC in Hawaii.
Right, and kind of like you said, I mean, they set it up pretty well. You look back to the opening weekend, you go 0-3-1, and you're thinking, man, this is not what was sort of the vision of how this season would go. And then they go to South Alabama, pull off the sweep, and really the big difference was the bullpen. I mean, they give up 18 earned, I think it was, in 14 innings in San Diego, and then they toss 13 scoreless at South Alabama. And the offense kind of has done what it's done. It's showing a little bit more power and more depth this year, certainly, than what we saw last year. The starting pitching has been, I would say, good, not great, both weekends. But the ability of the bullpen to bounce back and to really show the depth that it looked like it had in the preseason, I think is the most encouraging part of this thing. And, yeah, I mean, you look at this opportunity this weekend. You have two top teams, Vanderbilt Friday, Ole Miss Sunday, Hawaii sandwiched in there on Saturday. It's a major opportunity for Nebraska as it tries to build that NCAA at-large resume where, you want to be in a position where you don't have to win the Big Ten tournament at the end of the year or even the regular season to get in. You want to build the strength of that RPI now. And you look at Nebraska's schedule, they're not going to leave the state the rest of this month. And their home schedule is, I would say, extremely manageable. But the downside is when you look at the rest of the way, there's not a lot of opportunities to get those big RPI-changing, RPI-defining sort of games. And really outside of Maryland and a series at Iowa, this is sort of probably it in terms of top 25 competition Nebraska is going to see. So major opportunities. Everyone knows Vanderbilt, but that's been to the College World Series regularly, won the title in 19. Miss won the championship last year, and they're still rolling one of the best lineups in the sport right now. So big chance for Nebraska. We'll see how that momentum carries over, but it really is. It's more. I think you have to look at it more of a big picture as a fan and say that how they do this weekend will define how we talk about their postseason chances going forward.
Evan, how do you define a successful weekend for the Huskers this weekend? Is it going to come down to wins and losses for you here? Because you got some stiff competition. I don't want to overlook Hawaii here, but I don't know as much about them as I know about Vandy and Ole Miss. And you mentioned Ole Miss, very dangerous lineup. I know they've already run-ruled a couple teams this year. Pitching's somewhat untested, but they got hitters 1 through 9 in that lineup. As for Vandy, they have talent every single year, especially in their pitching rotation. They always have some strong arms. So I want to get your take on what a successful weekend looks like for the Huskers against those two teams in particular.
Well, I mean, you'd love to win one of those two. Both of those teams, I mean, they're top 10, but they do have, I would say, flaws relative to what their standards are. Vanderbilt, their pitching is elite, their defense is top-notch, but the offense has been kind of suspect, and it's a younger group that's sort of finding its way, really talented group, but it's a kind of team that you probably would rather play now than 2 months from now, once they've gone through the SEC grind and sort of figured things out. Ole Miss kind of the opposite, where they still return a ton of firepower from what they had in Omaha last year. Really, the pitching beyond their Friday guy is new and untested and that sort of thing. And so you kind of like Nebraska being in that Sunday spot with them when you see whatever might be left of their bullpen, and they have a guy who's sort of had a couple of wobbly starts to his career, you would think would be the projected starter against Nebraska on that day. So, if you go 0 for 2 and you're competitive, I suppose you move on and you start stacking wins, and typically has done when it's gotten back to Haymarket Park. But again, you just can't you can't overstate the value of getting one of those wins. So if it comes down to the stretch and you're a bubble team, man, that's a victory that's going to keep giving if Ole Miss and Vanderbilt go on to do what they've done in past years. So, yeah, I mean, you can feel good about being competitive. But, you think back to TCU last year. Nebraska gets a 3-game series against TCU, which was top 25 at the time. They never led. They were fairly competitive, I suppose you could say, but it didn't do them a whole heck of a lot of good down the stretch. So you'd feel really good if you can find a way to steal one of these two this weekend.
Evan Bland with us from the Omaha World Herald. A preview for Nebraska's weekend roadie to Minneapolis, Ole Miss, Vandy, and Hawaii on the docket for Will Bolt and crew. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're at BBA for girls state basketball. 6 o'clock tip coming up. North Star, their first trip ever to state for girls basketball. Most of the student section is filing in right now. Millard North, after a year off of heading to state, back at it again. So we'll have coverage of that coming up. Evan, going to turn attention to the NFL Combine. You have action tomorrow. O'Shawn Mathis going to be busy as he's been working with linebackers and edge guys. And, what did you hear about Mathis as far as projections go when he was at TCU, when he was all Big 12, when he was second team all Big 12? And now you look at what he did at Nebraska, respectable, 50 tackles, respectable, 25 quarterback hurries, 5, was great in that fourth quarter against Iowa. What's his ceiling, in your opinion? Could he work his way into a second-day guy, or do you think he's 5 through 7?
Yeah, I think he's probably right on that line somewhere. And his is an interesting story because you do think about his situation last year when he could have turned pro. And I would be curious. I don't know that we'd ever really know the answer, but I'd be curious to see if his year at Nebraska boosted his draft stock, if it dipped it a little bit, or if it maybe didn't make too much of a difference. And, having just seen him for the 1 year, and I know how TCU used him in their defense, he strikes me as a guy who is going to ace the interview portion. He's a really thoughtful, well-spoken young man. Physically, I think he'll test well in a lot of areas. To me, it's about the fit. I mean, in some ways, he was kind of a tweener. You got to find a system that really allows him to get after the quarterback, but doesn't necessarily overexpose him in the run game. And I think that's what kept him off the field, at least didn't make him a heavy full-time snaps guy at Nebraska, was just the run-stopping ability. So I think the ability to get after the quarterback is up there. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're an NFL team looking at what he can bring you, and he can be a second or a third down sort of guy to start, and maybe you can build up that strength and find a good spot for him in the defense. Yeah, I think probably right on that line, maybe fifth, sixth rounder is probably good. And I do think that how he does at this combine could make him some money if he performs well here over the next week too.
Evan, as for Trey Palmer, how much think's on the line for him at Combine Week? It seems that, at least from the draft experts and combine experts that I follow and really trust their opinion, he sounds like he's a third-round guy, maybe a top end to the fourth-round guy. Everyone sees the athleticism. Everyone sees the speed. The questions with him are, how is he going to adapt to NFL press coverage against the type of secondary members you're going to face in the NFL, as well as what type of value can he bring out wide? He seems to bring a lot of value in the slot, but he also seems to be a little bit limited in that sense that his route tree seems to be the best from the slot, and they're unsure how they're going to project him out to a Z or an X receiver. So I want to get your take on what Trey Palmer has to prove. Obviously, the 40 time is going to be important with him being a deep ball type threat, but is he going to be able to answer those questions about his versatility at the Combine, or is that just going to come down to a team needing to take a chance on him?
Yeah, I don't know how much he can actually improve his draft stock. I mean, the 40 times certainly will be something to watch, but I mean, man, just go back and look at, any Nebraska game from last year, and you see how he can get by defenders, create a ton of space, get open deep, and if I'm evaluating him, I'm putting more stock in that than I am how he runs straight line in sort of a track style setting. So, to me, kind of like you said, I mean, how does he adjust to more of a pro-style setting? I think if you're wanting to be critical, you could say that he probably dropped more balls maybe than you feel great about as a super high-end receiver, so that's probably an area that you can clean up a little bit too. But just what he did at the senior showcases and his last year at Nebraska, I mean, to me, that pretty much lays it all out there. You've got a burner, a guy who's competitive, who loves the game of football. I mean, I think that part was pretty evident too, and just the path that he's taken from LSU to Nebraska. I know he's a young father as well. I mean, this is a guy who's motivated to make this thing a career and grind and do what you need to do. So, I think as long as your 40 time isn't a total disaster, and there's no reason to think that it will be for him, I think his tape has put him in a good enough position to where I don't know that there's all that much that can hurt him this weekend, and he's probably fairly set, like you said, maybe in that third, fourth round range right now.
Evan Bland with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. We're at Pinnacle Bank Arena. Evan, about 90 seconds here. Travis Vokalek, the other invitee to the NFL Combine. Are you seeing any more smoke around Travis with a late round opportunity, or is he likely an undrafted guy? What are you hearing?
Well, I mean, it's the old saying, right? You just need one guy to give you a chance, and just the connections I know from his family in pro football is there. So being a coach's son, I know that can carry some weight too. So, I'm not sure. And what I would say too is that sometimes, and we've seen examples of this in recent years with Nebraska, where it's almost better to be an undrafted free agent than to go in like the 7th round, because you do get a chance to negotiate with teams and to find a place that will maybe best fit your skill set. I mean, we saw that with a guy like Jack Stoll, who ended up in Philadelphia and has been thriving. So, whether he goes late somewhere and has that sort of notoriety of being drafted or ends up being undrafted, I do think he's going to land somewhere. He's too smart, he's too strong, he's too, I think, versatile from what we certainly saw during his time at Nebraska to not end up on an NFL roster. It's just a matter of, the path that he takes to get there.
Evan Bland with us. Evan, have a good week. We'll check in with you again. Thanks for giving us a few minutes today.
Thanks, guys.
There he is, Evan Bland with us. Find him on Twitter at Evan Bland OWH. We'll dive a little bit further into the Combine, as that is tomorrow with O'Shawn Mathis and more Huskers. Hail Varsity from PBA continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow Wednesday here at Pinnacle Bank Arena. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, day one of Girls State 2023. Come see us at Rosie's tomorrow. You're heading down for state tournament action. We're posted up, Rosie's downtown, 10th and P, 4 to 6 tomorrow. And then your home and headquarters for Boys State next week will be at Rosie's as well, along with all the action on the radio here, at least locally in Lincoln. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 489-1240. You can email the show, Chris at hailvarsity.com. So, Elijah, let's dive into the three names for Nebraska. Good story by Mitch Sherman with the talent infusion that Coach Rule's going to go after with his style of recruiting and that track factor, right? The speed element. And there's been progress and some wow with the number of kids that have been drafted from Temple, right? And also guys that have ended up in the league from Baylor. Now you turn your attention to Nebraska. Nebraska's got a lot of future star or future pick candidates with the portal options for sure. But guys that are going to try and make some money tomorrow through this weekend. O'Shawn Mathis, he'll run tomorrow. You look at Trey Palmer over the weekend, and then Travis Vokalek. I know we touched on it with Evan Bland. My take on Mathis is a guy that is going to be that situational edge guy that will find a roster spot or float between practice squad and active duty. And I think he's a guy that can come in and do some impressive things. I think what will set Mathis apart, what could set him apart when it comes to that gamble decision, is not only his get-off time. He did that in the Big 12, and whatever you want to think of the Big 12 from a physicality standpoint, the Big 12's done pretty well with putting offensive tackles into the league from a pass pro standpoint. Just look at Oklahoma. So I think the first step, that burst, Mathis is a really good first step guy. And Mathis, from an arm standpoint, I mean, he has really long arms to help get around that edge. I think he's mobile enough to have some bend as well. I mean, your prototype is to me a Randy Gregory. He's super fluid, he's mobile. When he wants to be, can be really tough and set the edge, but he is just vicious wherever you want to line him up off the edge. I'm not comparing Mathis to Randy. I'm saying if I'm an NFL guy, go get me Randy without the baggage. I think O'Shawn Mathis is a guy that grades out right now as a fifth-round guy. But if he shows some really good short burst in the drills this week in Indy, he could climb the ladder. There's still that early film on him that wowed a lot of people when he was at TCU, and I think this year at Nebraska hurt his stock. I don't think the numbers were what they could have been or should have been based on the NIL chase. 3.5 sacks. I needed that doubled at a minimum if I'm Nebraska. The 50 tackles, there was a lot of hustle tackles he made downfield, but his hurries, that's a pretty decent number. 25, okay, is good. And he showed up big against a good offensive line in Iowa, or at least a good reputation line in Iowa. He dominated that fourth quarter, so I think Mathis can do some work. Trey Palmer, then I'll shut up and let you jump in. Trey Palmer could really kill it as a third option wide receiver. Trey Palmer was the number one and did well in 2 games. He lit up Iowa, he lit up Purdue, and folks will notice that. They are going to notice Michigan, they're going to notice Illinois, they're going to notice Witherspoon lining up across from him, and they're going to notice 6 catches, 12 yards, no touchdowns in either of those games. Quarterback situation was funky with Michigan, and things didn't end up well with who was throwing the football to you after Casey went out. But Trey disappeared too often to be a third-round guy or a second-round guy. He's got that athletic ability to wow. But him being a second or a third choice wide receiver, he could fit great. He could be really great and find the right team and be that third option and really wear out some defenses.
I'm just going to bring up a couple drills that I think if you're watching for the Huskers in the Combine, if you're one of those Combine fans, you should be watching for those two guys. With Oshon Mathis, we'll start with him because that's where you started, Schmidty. The drills that are really, really going to be important, and it's important for most of your edge rushers at the Combine. First, being your 10-yard split in the 40, that's more important than the 40 time as a whole. The 40 time still holds some importance for the edge rushers, a lot more than, say, an offensive lineman or an interior defensive lineman, unless you go and test incredibly well in the 40 time. Usually for those guys, the 40 time doesn't matter all that much, but the 10-yard split is going to be big for Oshon Mathis. Follow it up with the 40-yard dash time. Also, the broad jump among your edge rushers. How much explosion do you get from your legs? That is huge. If you remember Hassan Reddick, he topped out among defensive linemen whenever he was at the Combine. He also he had the best broad jump of any defensive lineman dating back to like 2003, and I think he also had the second best 10-yard split among defensive linemen. You see where that got him in the NFL. That's just an example. Those drills are going to be important for Oshon Mathis. And the last one I'll bring up with him is that 3-cone shuttle, the L drill, where you start out going straight, you turn the right. That determines a player's bend and change of direction, which as an edge rusher, again, is going to be huge. So the broad jump, but the 40-yard time looks like along with the 10-yard split in the L drill, the 3-cone shuttle are going to be huge for the Oshon Mathis. As for Trey Palmer, 40 time is going to be absolutely paramount with him at this draft. You've seen it on tape. You've seen the speed. You've seen the separation. Is he going to be able to go get a time? I'd say either in the very low 4.4s or in the high 4.3s. That's going to be a successful run for Trey Palmer. If you can get somewhere around a 4.37, a 4.38, up to like a 4.42, if he's running in there, I think he's at least showing that the speed you see on film is not just a film thing. He has that real athleticism. And then also drops with Trey Palmer. It wasn't a huge issue his senior year. He's shown it at times through his career. Count how many drops Trey Palmer has at the Combine. That's what scouts are going to be looking for. That's huge for your NFL wide receivers. You can't be dropping passes in the NFL. Watch for that as well, because I don't think he's going to be able to show all that much in terms of what he can do against press coverage. That was a problem last year against both those games you mentioned, Michigan and Illinois. They were playing Trey Palmer in press coverage, and he struggled, as well as just how clean do his routes look coming out of the slot and out wide. It's hard to get a real look at the NFL Combine whenever you're in the underwear Olympics of sorts. It's different than in pads, so I don't think you're going to get a great look at what that looks like, but the drops in the 40 time are going to be huge with Trey Palmer.
Kranak always brought this up, and going to give him credit for it, but even with Palmer, I mean, he's been catching the football a long time, and he did more hand catching than body catching as the season progressed. That said, there was some of those drops, he let the ball get into him right when the defender was there. Now, Palmer made game-changing plays this season. We assessed the negative, which was Michigan and Illinois. He also was able to beat Indiana and Rutgers and flip the game, take it over. They knew the ball was going to him. The one thing that worked for Nebraska's offense better than about anything, and it was inconsistent, but when it worked, it was great, was that, well, Palmer's down there somewhere. Right? I mean, just start running, dude. And the comeback win against Rutgers and against Indiana as you take a fourth quarter tie ball game at 14 apiece, and that deep shot really flipped things on its ear. So there's that element. You pair him in a receiving core that's already pretty decent. Wow. And I think this will also help back up a little bit of Palmer. He's a Mickey Joseph guy. Mickey Joseph's a guy that coached him at Nebraska, that brought him to LSU. And Mickey Joseph is a guy from a coaching standpoint and a talent evaluator that has Jefferson and Chase in the league. And there's a ways to go for Palmer, but Mickey goes after Sunday guys. He goes after draft picks, and he's found a lot of draft picks. He did so at LSU, and he brought one to Lincoln, and that guy was responsible for, I'd say, 3 of the 4 wins this season with his game-changing plays.
The only problem with Palmer is he doesn't have that ready-made NFL ability like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but that can set up well for him in terms of what landing spot he inevitably ends up going to. I don't think he's going to go to the type of team, and obviously the draft is a very fluid situation. You're not quite sure what's going to happen, but in terms of his skill set, it sets up really well for a team that's got a pretty well-made offense, and they're looking for a piece that they can take a chance on in the third or fourth round that's going to set up to be a guy that you can bring in situationally into a football game. You can put him in the slot. He doesn't have to go be out there and be a 3-down wide receiver type of guy. You can bring him in situationally. You know what? It's second and short from midfield, and you're looking to take a deep shot. You can bring him in the slot, run him deep, and see just what kind of offense that sets up around, because it's going to have to take a safety deep with Trey Palmer running that route. So he's going to be a situational guy, a ready-made offense type guy. When I look at the Chiefs could maybe use a guy like Trey Palmer. I look at another place in Seattle that has been struggling. Tyler Lockett's looking a little bit past his prime. They could use a deep threat option that would pair really well with DK Metcalf. Just one of those offenses that they already have some weapons. They just need that piece that they can take a chance on somewhere in the middle of the draft and hope he pans out. That's why I think it's going to set up well for Trey Palmer. He doesn't have to do everything all at once as soon as he steps foot in the NFL, like those guys that we've listed, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. He's going to be a situational guy that, as time goes on in the NFL, assuming he can stick and stay somewhere, he can develop some of those tendencies, some of those abilities.
His option will be fast, get downfield, work the rest of the field open for some of these other wide receivers, find your role and use it. And Palmer's a guy that is quite capable of doing that. Travis Vokalek, I think Evan Bland nailed it with Vokalek's upside. I think he's a guy you'll see make a squad, maybe even drafted. You look at last year's draft for Nebraska, 2 second-rounders on a 3-9 football team. Cam Taylor-Britt, perfect situation in Cincinnati, really came on. That comes down to scouting and believability with what Zach Taylor saw. Cam Jurgens, the heir apparent, and really wowed his teammates in Philly. JoJo Doman made the team as an undrafted guy because even though he's a bit of a tweener, that guy is so athletic. He was able to play and do well on special teams. And then Samari Toure did some nice work. I'm anxious to see, and I know it'll come down to pro day for these guys because they're not at the combine. What does Garrett Nelson do? Caleb Tanner also with his athleticism and quick twitch. Oliver Martin's been to 3 big-time programs, and he's had moments in his career. And Kolarevic is also a guy that's very athletic. We'll get you to a Jock Doc here at PBA. It's Hail Varsity.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmidty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio here at PBA. State tournament action. We keep the basketball theme going with a Jock Doc Wednesday. Nebraska Orthopedic Center. Dr. Ben Woodhead with us. Dr. Ben, how were you at hoops growing up?
I was a little bit vertically challenged, so I can't say that I was highest on the roster there.
But you played, right?
I did play. I played at most of high school. So
well, good. 3-point assassin or more of a dribble drive guy?
Probably a dribble drive guy. I don't know if I would attach assassin to my name with basketball, but we at least tried.
You're super humble. I love it. You probably average like 28 a game, but I don't know if I was a good 3-point shooter or not. No, I'm just messing with you, Dr. Ben. But, hey, it is a glorious time of year with girls' state and boys' state just around the corner. A phenom at the age a lot of these kids are at was LaMelo Ball. And just a tough week for Ball, suffering a fracture to his right ankle in the win over Detroit. So he'll be done for quite a while. We just got to talk about what's next. What are the options here for Ball? And Dr. Ben, what constitutes surgery with a ankle fracture?
Yeah, so these ankle fractures, they can come in a variety of flavors. You can have essentially a non-displaced one where the bone doesn't move that oftentimes you can treat with a boot and, gradually get back into weight bearing kind of as tolerated and putting your weight on it without requiring any surgery. That's obviously best case scenario because you don't have to go under the knife. If it's not moved or displaced, then, it should heal in that area. And then by 6 weeks, once it's healed, he's gradually getting back into kind of more strenuous activity. Now, the interesting thing with ankle fractures is kind of as you move on that continuum, they get more severe and you can fracture the outside ankle, the inside ankle. They can become displaced, which ultimately then requires plates and screws. Even with a more advanced type of ankle fracture, you can actually tear the ligament that holds the shin bone and the outside fibula bone together, and then you got to actually fix that as well. So, these really come in all shapes and sizes, and the severity increases as the forces get more severe. And so, much of that depends on what he actually had in terms of how his recovery will look.
Dr. Ben Woodhead's with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. LaMelo Ball, our topic, ankle fracture for Ball. So Ball's had issues this season with his left ankle. He's missed time or had 3 different instances of sprained left ankles just through 36 games. And now you have the right ankle fracture. If one side of the lower body is bothering you, can that cause added stress to the other side?
Yeah, he can absolutely be overcompensating on that other side from his prior ankle sprains and place him at an increased risk of injury there. And the hard part is once you start going down that path of ankle sprains as well, the ligaments can get loose and they cannot be as tight and stable. And so he really is potentially favoring that other side, and that certainly could have placed him at risk for that ankle fracture. Those ankle sprains, those are also not of any, sometimes they can be of more consequence as well as, that can ultimately require surgery over time as well. So, it'll be interesting to see how he does recovering from this ankle fracture as he has to put a lot of weight and stress on that already kind of recovering left ankle.
Charlotte is out of playoff contention, just 19 games left. They're not going to rush him back, so he'll have plenty of time to figure out where he wants to go. But, the coach said, it's just a basketball ankle. There's nothing you can do about it. Describe what a coach would mean with that in the basketball circles, a basketball ankle. I mean, that part of the body is just abused, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And as these guys are jumping and landing, these ankles are at high stresses. And you can certainly get the typical ankle sprains, and I'm sure that's what he's actually referring to, because the ankle fracture is not necessarily a basketball ankle. That's a true trauma where you actually break it and oftentimes requires surgery. So, but you see a lot of these guys, they tape their ankles, whether they've had ankle sprains or not, because they're really trying to prevent any type of ankle, laxity per se, meaning loosening. And so it's certainly an injury that's very common in the basketball world.
Couple more minutes. Dr. Ben Woodhead with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. LaMelo Ball, our topic, ankle fracture. What's the quickest recovery you've seen or heard of with a non-operative ankle fracture? I mean, what's the soonest someone can get back, or is it pretty standard 4 to 6 weeks with that part of the body?
It usually is pretty standard, but if it's certainly a fracture that is amenable to not having surgery, you can actually progress them with weight bearing over the first couple weeks. And, as the ankle becomes more stable, as that bone feels solid, he's going to be able to get back quicker. And so, you can't really shortcut the avenue of healing. But at the same time, these minimally displaced or these fractures that you can barely see on x-ray, they're certainly going to heal a lot more quicker, and they're not going to have as much severity in terms of long-term outcomes. And so if that's the best case scenario, I would expect him to be back to jogging over the next probably 1 to 2 months, and then he should gradually be able to progress. It's probably a blessing they aren't in the playoffs, so he's not going to get pushed into getting back.
Dr. Ben, are there some preventative things that athletes can do or do to build strength or durability in their ankles?
Yeah, they certainly can. You can, it's not like these athletes that are not having a prior ankle injury are probably not doing much therapy on a regular basis on the ankles. But, even just taping it and wearing braces, that's going to certainly help with some prevention. There's also just the unfortunate incident because they're running, jumping, cutting, pivoting, landing on those ankles that, they just get in the wrong time and place and the injuries happen. So there's certainly a component that you just can't prevent as well.
Last thought here, Dr. Ben Woodhead with us. Nebraska Orthopedic Center, LaMelo Ball, our topic at a Jock Doc Wednesday. Is his explosiveness, his elevation, his acceleration, can all that be affected after an ankle fracture and, worst case scenario, a surgery? Can that dial him back from his former athletic self?
It certainly can play a role because anytime you have an injury, even if you're not doing surgery, you're going to get some type of scarring. You're going to get some bleeding in the area. And so as those soft tissues heal, it's going to inhibit him to some degree. Sometimes these bony injuries, though, like the actual break, they're actually better because once the bone heals, you're not waiting on any ligaments or soft tissue structures to heal. And so once the bone's healed, you kind of get back and go after it as much as you can. Sometimes these soft tissue injuries, like the ankle sprain on his other side, can be more problematic long term.
Dr. Ben Woodhead with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center, and a Jock Doc Wednesday. LaMelo Ball, his right ankle fracture, our topic today. Dr. Ben, great to spend some time with you. Thanks for a few minutes.
Hey, you as well, bud. Have a great day.
Winding down Hail Varsity here at PBA as North Star into their locker room. And Millard North ready to go. We'll wind down the show next.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time here from PBA, courtside here, Girls State 2023, a few minutes away from North Star and Millard North. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, the Hall of Fame coach Jeff Smith, courtside with me. You can watch streaming Hail Varsity Radio every day at H Varsity Radio on Twitter, Hail Varsity YouTube channel as you hear the roar behind us as North Star is out of their locker room. The first time in school history the girls team has made it to state. They are loaded. We'll have a preview here locally on KFOR. Real quick, Coach Smith, what an effort by Lincoln area boys teams. 3 in state, first time in a long time, and almost Lincoln High last night. Of course, Omaha Metro going to be a lot of fun to cover next week as well.
Yeah, it's shocking. No OPS schools for a long, long time.
First time in how long?
71, I think they said. That's amazing in itself. But I kind of feel like this is how it's supposed to be. I think Lincoln should be competitive. And we just went through a little drought there. We just didn't have a lot of size for a while in the city. And it just didn't fall together for some teams at certain times. But now we have length on almost every team. And like you said, we could have had Lincoln High in. Northeast had a tough draw, but they were good enough to be here. Southwest, was right there with East. There's 7 teams, 6-7 teams that could have gone in almost. But those top teams like Bell West and Millard North, and they're awful good. And it's going to be really fun to see how Lincoln battles them in this setting, especially since Lincoln schools haven't been in this setting for a while.
A lot of folks, and we've had the pleasure all year long of just seeing elbow to elbow in gyms across Lincoln and West Side. Tip of the cap to West Side for surviving at home last night in overtime. What a finish by West Side.
Yeah, Dan's a good friend of mine at Lincoln High, and I just feel for him. He's really fought through the hard times there, and now they have some talent and had a really good year. And then to lose a heartbreaker like that is tough on everybody in the program. And I know he's got to be hurting, but they'll be back.
Okay, Coach, we've got about a minute here. Elijah Herbel will take advice from Coach Smith. Do's and don'ts in Vegas as Elijah's taking his credit card to go make it happen in Vegas this weekend.
Do's and don'ts. Have a budget. That's a do. Yep. I'm a craps guy. I feel like that's a pretty safe one myself. It's not that hard to learn, Elijah.
Okay, I don't quite get it. I watched a whole video on how to play craps, and I went okay, 7s, 11, okay, that's about all I know.
Yeah, there's got to be some YouTube videos. They're self-explanatory, but just stand by a guy that knows what he's doing, put a little money down, ask him questions, and then when the hot roller comes, start putting money down. That's all there is to it.
Good enough. Walk in with a sport coat and a toothpick.
Not that I've ever played.
And work on a Jersey accent. Embrace your inner Joe Pesci is what I'm telling you.
Don't talk to all the Spider-Men on the street and all those, So you'll have fun.
I'm sure I will. I'm taking the cash I'm playing with to the table, so I can't overspend on the tables. And then we finish it all off with UFC on Saturday. So I'm excited. It's going to be fun. I might even check in with Hail Varsity Radio out in Vegas. We'll see. We'll see if schedule permits.
He'll need bail money or he'll need ransom. I love it. Elijah, safe travels, safe trip. Appreciate you, brother. We're going to say goodbye and back at you tomorrow, downtown Rosie's Hail Varsity Roadshow Thursday. We will get things tipped off here locally shortly, North Star and Millard North. We'll talk to you again tomorrow at 4 with Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.